What are some dark secrets about grocery stores? I worked at a chain grocery store years ago. We had this awful smell down one particular aisle. The manager never wanted to investigate and would just say something must have spilled. She even went as far to have us hang air fresheners on the shelves to mask the smell. Several years later the store underwent a remodel where aisles were moved. They found a giant rat's nest under the shelving unit of this particular aisle. It was one of the most disgusting things ever. Once they cleaned it out, the smell finally resolved. I worked at a Heath food grocery in Florida when I was in college. About 90% of the money the store made was from supplements, not food. The food was to get people to come in and do all of their shopping at one place. Also, we had a semi-secret, cash-only product kept in the back office that was a drink to help you pass drug tests. No idea what was in it, but I sold at least 20 bottles per week. Worked as a night stoker and checker at a Kroger, and the number one stolen thing was meat. Every night all over the store you find open packages of meat hidden everywhere or just checked under shelves. And to the point above about the animals, don't ever look or get under the shelves. Anything under should be considered lost forever, trust me. I work in retail bakery. We don't make anything from scratch. Everything comes in frozen. We just bake it or thaw them out before putting them on the shelves. Cakes are pre-made, we just put icing and decorations. Lots of customers don't like that our products are kept in the freezer. My first job was working at a grocery store. A few weeks before a planned ad launched, the stock team would repress the items in the ads and mark them up, so the sales price was only a few cents less than the original, non-sale price. They'd do this in advance and cycle through the store marking up items before they went on sale. Then shortly after the sale went off, the prices would be lowered again. They had a specific night a week where the stock team would stay overnight to repress everything. So this isn't technically about the grocery store itself, but still relevant. My first ever job was as a bagger in a grocery store when I was 15. To work in this store, however, I had to be part of the union in order to work there. Working in said union included a monthly fee as my union dues. After 6 months, they started cutting my hours more and more each week until finally they cut my hours completely for 4 months. After that time, I got a bill in the mail for $150 of unpaid union dues. I called the office and tried to reason with them, saying that I was a 15-year-old high school student and this was my only income. They responded and said that it didn't matter and I still had to pay the dues. I asked if they would pursue the bill if I quit, and they said no. I called the grocery store the next day and quit without notice. Also, one of my responsibilities was to help people to their car and load groceries in their car if they wanted. I wasn't allowed to accept tips. One time, around Christmas, this guy bought $700 worth of grocery and helped load them into his car. He came back and tried to give me a $50 tip in front of my manager and walked away after I said I couldn't accept it. Manager took it, since I'm not allowed to accept tips. She acted like she was going to put it in the register, but she pocketed it. I worked for a Sam's Club, and the only bothersome thing I noticed other than their stingy payroll was the amount of food being thrown away. They praise themselves on donating to the local food bank, but it's only like 1-2% of what actually gets thrown away. I worked the grocery part and had to do the reclaims sometimes and hated myself throwing away a lot of good food only because the package was torn or smashed a little. They didn't care because I guess they got reimbursed some of that money back. And even worse, they wouldn't even let it slide if we wanted something that was gonna get thrown away anyway. They would threaten to write us up if we were to grab a Hot Pocket out of a ripped box, for example. I'm a cart pusher, bagger, cashier, etc. Basically your typical college kid just putting in grunt work. Anyway, not only do the carts hold everybody's food and get touched by strangers' hands all day, they get trash left in them all the time. If the store gives out samples, 90% of the time they leave a napkin and leftovers in the cart. We take the trash out, but we don't clean them. That's why a lot of chains leave out Sani wipes by the door. That and nobody actually gives a damn about your complaint. They pretend to care to get you out of the store. Once you leave, it's considered problem solved. I have worked in grocery stores for about 18 years. with 10 of them being in management. There are too many to list, so I will give a couple. I would say 98% of customer complaints just get ignored. Almost every time someone will give you your money back just so you come back and spend more money. When you say you will never come back, we don't believe you. Most grocery stores have a net profit of about 2-3%. The really good ones can get up around 10%, although rare. Just think about that. There is a reason you don't see enough registers open when you shop. Labor is the one controllable expense. I personally never use self-check because they are taking a job from another person. Plus they break down easily and I have had to fix them too many times. There is a reason why things are in specific places in most stores. Like fresh produce right when you walk in, or dairy all the way in the back corner of the store. Ever wonder why sugary kids cereals are on the bottom shelves? It's so kids see them. There are so many tricks grocery stores use to get you to buy more items. This isn't even the tip of the iceberg. There's a grocery store near where I live, and a lot of students shop there. Many students use their grocery delivery service, and for that you obviously need to give them a lot of personal info, name, address, phone number etc. Several weeks ago, many female students that shop there started getting messaged from a bunch of random people asking for a date and God knows what else. Apparently the owner has been selling the private info of students to a bunch of creeps. I have a friend who used to work for China's largest agricultural conglomerate, which makes it one of the largest in the world. They started out mainly specializing in rice, but also do a ton of cooking oil and some other common products in China. He climbed the ranks until he was in charge of distribution for Chongqing, one of the largest cities in the world. His job, basically, boiled down to figuring out how to bribe grocery store chain owners, to putting his company's products in prime shelving space, and figuring out how to bribe local factories and farming conglomerates to lower their prices for his company relative to the competition. This mainly consisted in metric fuck tons of KTV whores, baijiu, Chinese hard liquor, tobacco, drugs, especially ketamine in his time, and assisting with money laundering schemes, mainly real estate and stock market trickery. He had 16-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week of nothing but drinking, whoring, drug dealing, embezzlement, and endless ass kissing and getting his own ass kissed. He burned out of that in less than 2 years once he finally reached the position he had worked his ass off 8 years to get. The grocery business, like all businesses at the top levels in China, and probably most other countries as well, if we are being honest, is extremely morally grey and exhausting. I will say that, since Z started cracking down on some of the outward corruption, this kind of stuff is more on the DL than before. People have to be more clever and subtle and discreet, but I highly doubt things are really different below the surface. My friend got out of that business half a decade ago now though, so I don't have an insider view anymore. Whenever a grocery store is collecting money for a charity, they are never doing it out of the good of their heart. I'm a part-time cashier at my local grocery store. My manager routinely tells us to ask for donations and to make sure the customers are aware we are collecting money for X foundation. A few months ago, I overheard her complaining that we weren't hitting our monthly quota for donations. They are basically using customer donations as a tax write-off. Grocery store managers are very prone to being bribed by businesses when it comes to slot space. I was talking with a coworker at a part-time furniture store job I had a few years back. Guy was retired and used to manage grocery stores. I ask him about it, and he starts talking about all the free shit he got from Coke, Pepsi, Nestle, all sorts of big companies. They would offer him free Falcons tickets, flights to resorts all over the place, etc. Why? Because when they offered him this stuff he gave them more space on the shelves. Coke wants 5 feet more shelf space? Sure thing, just send me some tickets to see the Eagles next Saturday. He had a laundry list of shit that these companies gave him for better slot space. Even when companies started cracking down on it, they'd just send gifts to his family. If you ask an employee to check in the back for a product 9 times out of 10 they just walk back there, wait a couple minutes, and walk back out to tell you they don't have any more. The other day I was at the grocery store by my house attempting to buy a 12-pack of cherry Coke. There was none to be found. I was kind of wandering around the pop display looking for Lon, and one of the employees asked if he could help. I was like, I was looking for cherry coke, but I think it must be sold out. Dude asked me to wait a second and went into the back. After about 5 minutes I was contemplating walking away, but I still had hope in my heart that this dude was going to produce some cherry coke. Just as I had made up my mind to move on, he emerged from the back triumphantly holding a very battered pack of pop above his head.